Hey guys, today we are going to finish up with the digestive system. Okay. I apologize in advance if this is a little bit longer because I want to get through this chapter, and then next week we'll look at doing some review and then a little end of year assessment. Some functions of the digestive system: it ingests food, takes it in, it digests food, breaks it down into the nutrient molecules, it absorbs the nutrients, and then taking them into the bloodstream and then having them delivered to all the cells, and then it defecates remains, or ridding the body of the indigestible parts. The digestive system can be broken down into two smaller systems, I guess you could say, or two divisions. One is the gastrointestinal tract. That's what we typically think of: the mouth, the pharynx, the esophagus, stomach, small intestine, large intestine, and then the anus. The accessory organs are those things which assist the GI tract. Okay, so our teeth, salivary glands, pancreas, liver, and gallbladder. When we're looking at the GI tract, okay, it's a continuous hollow muscular tube that winds through the front half of our body, okay, the ventral cavity of the body, and it runs basically from the stomach to the anus. Okay, first part of that is the mouth. As you can see in this lovely picture, it's not any of my children, although that would have been really good. I should have done that. Food enters the body through our mouth. Okay. There we break it down, chew it up, and you can see in the labeled diagram the uvula, okay, is that kind of finger-like projection in the back of our mouth. It hangs down from the soft palate. The hard palate is the front roof of the mouth, and then behind it, the tissue gets a little bit softer, and that's where the uvula comes off of there. Then we have the pharynx. The pharynx is what the food from your mouth passes to the pharynx. Okay, through the pharynx, we have food passing, fluids, and air. Okay, the walls of the pharynx have two layers of skeletal muscles. The inner layer runs longitudinally. The outer layer is circular. We'll get into why that's important in a little bit. Okay, peristalsis, another kind of vocab word for us, but it's propelling mechanism. Okay, this is another time when I kind of think of the water wiggles that we talked about in class. Okay, because the muscles contract above it, pushing the bolus of food down. The muscles on the bottom are relaxing, letting that food scoot down. Okay. So the alternating contractions of the two layers, the longitudinal layers and the circular layers, are what pushes the food down the pharynx into the esophagus. And this is a very common theme. There's a lot of peristalsis that occurs in the digestive system. Okay. But basically, we have the circular muscles. If I've got a ball of food here, we've got the circular muscles that contract. Okay. The longitudinal ones relax, and that pushes the food down. Then the process keeps happening over and over just to keep pushing that through the muscular hollow openings. Okay, then we have the esophagus. And this runs from the pharynx all the way through the diaphragm down to the stomach. It's the long tube that connects the pharynx to the stomach. It's about 25 centimeters long, and it's the passageway for food to the stomach. The same process occurs, the peristalsis, squeezing and pushing, propelling it down. Then we have the stomach. I'm not sure what happened with this PowerPoint, because as I was searching for all of the diagrams, the a lot of the diagrams were labeled in another language. So I don't know what happened there, but you can see the shape of the stomach. We're not going to get technical about all the parts of the stomach anyway, so it doesn't really matter. But the stomach is kind of a C-shaped organ. It's located on the left side of our abdominal cavity. It's almost completely covered by the liver and the diaphragm. Okay. And it's just kind of a temporary storage tank. It varies in length from 15 centimeters to 25 um, from person to person. The diameter and the volume, of course, depend on the food consumption. Okay. And that's how like a gastric bypass would work or something, because they just make the size of the stomach smaller. They clamp off part of it, or staple part of it, or sew part of it, depending on the procedure that you're having. But um, they make that smaller so then you feel like you're full. Okay. Which is why it's so, so important following those kinds of procedures that you don't just go back to eating your normal ways. Like if you've ever been around anyone that's had gastric bypass, they will, start off after their surgery, they're maybe eating like a half a cup of food, not much food at all, as they are getting back into the process of eating. Okay. The stomach also has the circular and longitudinal muscle fibers. Okay. So that way we can push that food out of that storage tank. But it also has some oblique muscle fibers. And if you remember back to our muscle fibers chapter at the very beginning of this semester, oblique means running at an angle. Okay. So if you can imagine the fibers running at an angle, that allows, as the muscles contract, that allows the food to churn and kind of mix up. Um, we also have some chemical breakdown that occurs in the stomach. Had we been in the classroom, we would have done some experiments with churning like a plastic bag with crackers and stuff so you could see the digestion um, process occurring. But it's not going to be any fun for you to watch me or maybe Dr. Maniac doing that on a video. Okay. The small intestine is a major, major site for digestion. Again, it's a muscular tube that goes from the pyloric sphincter to the large intestine. Okay. Nearly all of the absorption that occurs in the digestive system occurs within the small intestine. It is the very longest portion of the GI tract, typically ranges from 2 to 4 meters in length. Okay, we think about the small intestine or the large intestine being the largest because it's in its name. Okay, but it's actually as far as length, the small intestine is longer than the large intestine. Okay, the small intestine is in this picture, it's represented by kind of this orangish yellowish color is the beginning part, and then this deeper darker purple, and then the lighter purpley pink. Those are all represented or those all represent the small intestine. And then so those three parts, those three subdivisions are the duodenum, the jejunum, and the ileum. And I spelled ileum wrong. The large intestine, okay, runs from the ileocecal valve to the anus. Its major functions are drying out indigestible food and eliminating residue as feces. The large intestine completely nearly circles the small intestine on three sides. Okay, so this is the large intestine on the outside here, kind of wrapping around the small intestine. It's much larger in diameter, but it's than the small intestine, but it's shorter in length. Okay, so that's why it's called the large intestine, because it's so much bigger in diameter. It's only about 1.5 meters in length. The large intestine, when you look at the two functions of it, drying out indigestible food and eliminating residue as feces, if you are having diarrhea for any reason, okay, it is caused by a malfunction in the large intestine, okay, because for whatever reason, the extra fluid, the extra water is not being pulled out of that indigestible food. And as it's being eliminated in that different, in the different form, I guess you could say. The large intestine is made up of 5 subdivisions. Okay, we have the cecum, which is kind of just like a little sac at the beginning. We have the appendix, which is a little worm finger-like section that hangs off the cecum. Then the colon, the rectum, and then the anal canal. And the anal canal is what opens to the exterior. Then we have the accessory digestive organs. And again, these just assist the process of digestion. Okay, so we have the teeth, the tongue, and then several different digestive glands, including the salivary glands, the pancreas, the liver, and the gallbladder. When we're looking at the teeth, teeth perform a process called mastication, which is just simply chewing. It occurs by, of course, our jaws opening and closing, and then they also move a little bit side to side, mainly by our tongue moving the food between our teeth. Okay, and you don't necessarily think about your tongue doing that as you're chewing, but it certainly is moving that food around as we're chewing. Okay, the teeth are used to break down the food into smaller fragments, and we, of course, as we all know, have 2 different sets of teeth in our life. Okay, so we start off with our baby teeth, and then about the time kindergarten, first grade, so Dr. Maniac will be losing some teeth here in the next few months to couple years. We start to lose our baby teeth, and we get those adult teeth. Salivary glands. We have 3 pairs of salivary glands, and those glands just empty different secretions into the mouth to help break down the food even more. Okay, so we have the three types of salivary glands. We're not going to be responsible for knowing the different types with our kind of crazy schedule, but they all just produce saliva, and so then that saliva moistens the food and makes chewing it and swallowing it a lot easier. Then we have the pancreas, which is a soft pink triangular gland extending from the abdomen or from across the abdomen from the spleen to the duodenum. Okay, so it's kind of, and it's not really pink in this picture, it's kind of orangish in the picture. But it produces enzymes that break down digestible foods. Okay, the one we talk about most often is insulin, of course, and those people that their pancreas isn't producing insulin, of course, are diabetic. The liver, it's the largest gland in the body. It's located right under the diaphragm. If you look at a picture of the entire abdominal cavity, you see the diaphragm going across the center transversely, and then it's that big, it's kind of triangular shaped, and it's kind of at an angle organ. Okay, it's on the right, more on the right side of the body. It nearly covers the stomach completely. You can hardly see the stomach out from under the liver. The liver is what produces bile, and bile is a green yellowish watery solution. The gallbladder then is my pictures aren't switching. The gallbladder is a small, thin-walled green sac that hangs down from the liver. Okay, when digestion isn't occurring, so if digestion is occurring, the liver is constantly producing bile. Okay, so it's constantly producing bile passing through the gallbladder. If digestion isn't actively occurring, then the gallbladder fills up with bile. If digestion is occurring, then the bile just kind of filters through the gallbladder. Okay, so in my case, if I'm going to go back here, you can see this is the gallbladder here hanging down from the liver. Okay, so in my case, the doctor has removed my gallbladder, and so my liver is just constantly dripping the bile into the digestive system. Overall functions of the digestive system, we have ingestion. Okay, basically just that food is placed into our mouth. It's obviously a voluntary process You do have to eat, but you don't have to eat all the time. Food's not being forced into your mouth unless you're at your grandma's house and she thinks you look hungry. But it's just an active voluntary process. The next function is propulsion. Okay, this is where the peristalsis comes in. Food must be propelled from one organ to the next. And swallowing is an example of that food movement that depends on peristalsis. Okay. If we ingest something and it gets into our esophagus and it just sits there, we don't have the peristalsis occurring, then it's just going to sit there and we're going to choke. The next stage of digestion is the actual breakdown of food, and it starts with the mechanical breakdown. So that's that mixing of food by our tongue, the churning of food in our stomach, and then also how it segments in the small intestine. Okay. Each step of mechanical breakdown is just preparing food for a further step. Okay. So each mechanical breakdown is just breaking it down into smaller pieces until it can be digested along the way. Then, of course, we have digestion, which is that sequence of steps from the food molecules being large to being chemically broken down into their very building blocks using enzymes. Absorption, it's just that transport of the end products from the GI tract to the blood or lymph. And this is the major site of this is the small intestine. Then we have defecation, which is simply the elimination of those indigestible residues from the GI tract via the anus in the form of feces. Okay, that wraps up the digestive system and that wraps up everything we're going to learn for the year. Okay, it's crazy that I'm sending you these videos and saying this instead of telling you it face to face. But that's what we're doing. So I want to talk to you a little bit about next week. And next week we're going to do a little review activity on Monday. Remember that next week's schedule, because it's the last 3 days, we're having class Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, and then we're done. Okay, so we're so close. So Monday we're going to do a little digestive system review. Then Tuesday we're going to do I don't want to call it a final because obviously you have all your notes. You can use your PowerPoints. You can use anything that you have other than Google. I would like you to not Google, okay? Because I just simply want to see for my benefit what you've retained, okay, from the semester. I'm not going to use it to punish you. I do not want you to fail. I do not want your grades to drop in any way, shape, or form based on that assessment, okay? But I do want to see what we know. I want to see what we've retained. This is obviously a much different way of learning, and I want to see how effective I was, okay? I want to have an idea as to what we've retained, because in the classroom I can kind of see that. I can look at your faces and see if I'm completely losing you or how you're doing. Not to mention the enormous amount of review games that we normally play when we're face to face. So I just want to see how we did. Okay, I don't want you to panic. It's not going to bring your grade down. That's not my goal. My goal is just for me to see how I did more than how you did. Okay. So don't panic. Don't stress. Don't spend the whole weekend studying. It's not going to be super difficult, but I just want to see what we've retained. And I wanted to give you a heads up that was what was coming on Tuesday. And then Wednesday, we're going to do a little activity to just kind of wrap up the year and wrap the course up. And then you'll be done. Of course, do not hesitate to reach out if you need anything. That offer goes much longer than Wednesday. If you need anything all summer long next year, let me know. I'll talk to you soon.